All right, everybody, welcome back. In today's episode, we're going to start by upgrading our equipment one more time. Truthfully, when I started playing Path of Exile, I looked at the equipment stat effects and I realized there's so much missing out of it. There's not much fun to these, so I want to beef it up a little bit. I want to take the equipment and I want to make it to where you can only roll one, so you can have all low tier, mid tier, high tier health rolls. But if you roll mid-tier health, then it also removes low-tier and high-tier health from being rolled again. So you can only get one health roll. So we can get all of our stats to be unique stats when they roll. So first I want to do that. And then I want to add the ability levels. So I want a stat effect to be able to roll on here that gives us ability levels that will raise the level of our skills. And then the last couple things I want to do have to do with multipliers. In 5.6, they added multipliers and additives and some more operations to the gameplay effects. So it's really cool. So multipliers are now going to be really, really nice to use in 5.6 and really easy to manage and maintain. And on top of that, I want to show you what's called a constant curve, and we're going to do that implementing move speed, and we'll show you how to do that. So the first thing I want to do is the handling getting unique rolls on everything. So the first thing I'm going to do is come into the inventory. I'm going to open the inventory component, and in here, when we roll for stats, we have the equipment CDO here, and this is going to give you every possible stat every time, and it's going to re-roll that and reuse that. We don't want to do that anymore. We don't want to do that. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a copy of that. So we're just going to make a local fgameplay tag container, and we're going to call it possible stat container, and we'll set that equal to the equipment CDO possible stat rolls. I'll just cut that and paste it. So then I have the possible stat container. And we're going to use the possible stat container.num and then the possible stat container get by index right here. And then, so what that's going to do is pull it out of this copy. This possible stat container is going to pull it out of the copy. Well, after I stat roll index and I've got this, what I want to do is I want to take the possible stat roll container and I want to remove tag and I want to remove the random tag because we just gave it as a stat and I want to do that. Now, the next thing is kind of cool. Then this is how gameplay tags work. If you look in the documentation, you look at the official name for gameplay tags, you're actually doing what's called a gameplay tag tree, right? So because you're doing a gameplay tag tree, then gameplay tags have the concept of what's called the leaf tag, or the leaf name. And what the leaf name is no matter how long the branch of the gameplay tag is, no matter how many tiers you have, 6, 7, 8, 9, 15 tiers of gameplay tags, the leaf is the very last words, the very last dot. So in our stat effects, how we have them named currently, if you remember, if you see, everything is like stat effect.low tier.health up, and then you have stat effect.mid tier.health up, and then you have stat effect.high tier.health up, right? But if you look close enough, what you see is that the leaf name of all the tags is all the same, that applies the same stat effect to us, right? So I'm going to show you, we're going to manipulate using one container to make another container, and we'll do that efficiently and as well as remove all the other leaf tags. So what you want to do is we're going to make an F name, and this is going to be random tag name, and we'll set that equal to the random tag. You can say get tag leaf name, and then once we have that, then we can say for const f gameplay tag reference tag looking through the possible stat container. Oh, we need the random tag name, but I'm sorry, excuse me. We also need, I can't remove them out of the possible stat container while I'm looping through them. So unfortunately, I need one more fgameplay tag container. And we'll call this tags to remove. And whenever we're going to loop through this container just to make this container all out of tags and everything, what we could do is we check like this. We say if tag dot get leaf or get tag leaf name equals random tag name, right? So this will be if the health up matches health up, then we do tags to remove, and then we can say add tag fast, and we can add the tag to that. And add tag fast basically just skips the check for uniqueness, because we know that these are going to be unique tags that we're throwing in here, and we don't need to check to make sure it's there. So it's a little more optimized to be able to do that. And then so once I've built up this tags to remove, then what I could say is the possible stats container. I could say remove tags, and then it's the tags to remove. And then at that point, then we'll break. So now, no matter how many, you have 7 tiers of health if you want, or 12 tiers of health if you wanted to, you can put them in there. And if one rolls 1 tier of health, then the other 11 will be all removed out of that. And then it will continue just only rolling out of the possible stat container every time that it continues to roll. So it'll go down less and less. And so I'd like to test that if we can by building. Okay, and now that we're back in the editor, what I want to do is I want to come into the equipment, into the definitions, and how I want to do this is take the mace, and I want to be able to roll all the stats for all, we'll do this, all of our stats in all the definitions. And I want to see that no matter what, we will only get the 3. Which means we need to do no more than 3, because we'll run an infinite loop if we do 3, we'll run an infinite loop. Or if you do 5, you'll run an infinite loop. And then this 3. So we'll do this, and they'll all have 0 through 3, and no matter what, it'll do that. So I can hit play. And then we'll grab this client here, and I can hit 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. And we'll look here, and you have fireball health, wooden shield, nothing, crit chance and health and shield. So it did, that one did roll all 3. But again, only 1 of each, even though I have all the health and crit chance. Even though you can roll all the different ones, that one rolled the highest crit chance, 11.06. This is a really strong broken mace, by the way. Look at that crap, bro. That's a strong mace. So I guess that takes care of that. So now we know that we're rolling unique. Now we know that we're rolling unique stats. So that's step 1. All right. The next thing we're gonna do is tackle ability levels. So let's get into that. This is gonna be fun. So the first thing we're gonna want is come to, oops, no, I don't want to move that. We're gonna come equipment types, and we're gonna come back in here into the equipment stat effect group, and we're going to change some things. Instead of attribute name, what we're going to do is we're going to say stat effect name, because we're going to do that. And then what I want to do is we're going to make a similar to the abilities where we have an F gameplay tag that we call context tag. What's that equal to F gameplay tag? U property edit defaults and blueprint read only. We're going to do this similar to why we do the context tag and the other struct, is we're going to pass this around, and we're going to do this for either abilities or attribute stat effects, right? So we're going to have 2 different categories. We're going to have attribute stat effects and then ability stat effects. We're going to have to do that. So now that I have the context tag, we're going to come to the ability system component, and we'll just come into the private section, the ability system component, where we have the add equipment ability, and then we also have add equipment effects and remove equipment effects. So here's where we're going to need to do this, and we're going to handle doing the ability. See, when we grant the ability, okay, previous to 5.6, if you have the RPG ability, gameplay ability here, I can take the RPG ability, and on that I have ability tags, right? Prior to 5.6, ability tags is where you would slap, right? I have the equipment entry, and if we know the equipment entry equipment entry in the effect package has the ability that has the ability tag, right? Now previously, this ability tag would go right here in the ability tags on this. However, in 5.6, they deprecated this. This is now being called the asset tag container, and they are using a function called get asset tags now. They're going to say get asset tags, and that returns that ability tag container. But then if you also read further comments into it, right, if we go to the declaration or usages, we'll see that the set asset tags, where we're supposed to even be able to set the ability tags, look at, they've got our message here that this function, that's what HS is, right? This function should only be used during construction, as get ability tags are primarily read from the CDO, which means that the CDO is the class default object. So they're trying to even take away the fact that those ability tags are even dynamic in the first place. So we've now lost the ability to put the ability tag on there. However, what we can do is we can still use, if I take the ability spec, I can take the get dynamic source tags, and then we can add tag to that. And we can take that and we can add this ability tag to the source tags, the dynamic spec source tags. So now that I have the ability tag that on the dynamic spec source tags, when I grant the ability, so after we do this, then the thing is when we come to add equipment effects, when we come to these stat effects, we only have one style of stat effect, but now we need two. I need attribute stat effects and I need ability stat effects. And that's going to lead me to come to the RPG systems. That's the wrong RPG systems. This is the right RPG systems. This one. I need to come to the config, and we're going to come into the default gameplay tags.ini, because this is where we declared the stat effect, where we have high tier, low tier, mid tier, and everything. We're going to have to break this because I didn't think ahead with the foresight enough to do this ahead of time. So we're going to have to break this now. And we're going to say stat effect dot attribute dot high tier, and we're going to copy this attribute because it's going to come and be pasted over here. We're going to inject another tier into our, and this is a bad idea. This is not what you should not do this very often. I'm very bad for doing this, and I apologize, but you should not do this very often because it's going to break every one of your gameplay tags in there that use this in every single file. So if you break these, you got to go fix it in all of them. There's no warnings. They don't tell you about it. Your game is just broken until you go find them all. But now I have the stat effect dot attribute, and then I'm going to save this right here, and then I can close it. So now I have that. Well, what I want to do is in the ability system component, we're going to make a namespace, and it's going to be RPG gameplay tags and static, and we're going to define two static gameplay tags. So you define gameplay tag static, and this will be stat effect category attribute, and this is just that effect attribute. And then we'll do it again. UE define gameplay tag static stat effect category ability stat effect dot ability. So now that I have these two stat effect category attribute and stat effect category ability, now that I have those, what I can do is come down to add equipment effects. So this right here, I'm going to check before I do any of this stat effects right here. I'm going to check if the stat effect tag dot matches tag, not matches tag exact, just matches tag, RPG gameplay tag static attribute. So now if it's an attribute one, then we're going to do those, right? And we'll paste this here. And then we can say else if, and then we say stat effect tag dot matches tag, not exact, and then tag static ability Now we're going to get into this. So now if we're messing with an ability stat effect, here's where we're going to do something different. All we have to do is we're going to loop for, and we want to do non-const reference here. So F gameplay ability spec non-const reference called spec, and loop through get activatable abilities. Because if you do look, get activatable abilities, it does return that T array by non-const reference. So we still are capturing the actual specs. So we're still good there. Then we are going to say for spec if spec dot get dynamic source tags dot has tag exact, and here's where we're going to use the stat effect dot context tag. So technically, if we wanted to do this, we could say up here as well. We could say if not stat effect dot context tag dot is valid, return. Oh no, this is in a loop, so we could say continue. This is in a loop, so we'll say continue. So if it's not in the, if the context tag isn't valid, but it's an ability tag, then we're going to continue, because we should only do this if the context tag is going, we're trying to take this context tag, and for the ability categories, we're going to put the ability tag for this context tag. I wanted to leave it as context tag simply because I didn't want to call this ability tag, because I want to leave this open in the future if we need here in the category attribute, the attribute category, if there's for some reason in the future we need to add a gameplay tag to any reason for these, I want to be able to hold on to this context tag to be able to say, oh, I can still use that in the attribute as well. So if you really want to, if you don't want to do that, you want to say just this is ability, so use the ability tag, that's fine. So if the dynamic spec source tags has the context tag, which should be the ability tag because we added it down there, then what we could do is we could say take the spec dot level, and we could say set that equal to fmath clamp, and we're going to clamp the spec dot level plus the stat effect dot current value between 1.f and spec dot level plus the stat effect dot current value. That's it. And then when we do remove equipment effects, again, we're gonna try to do this. We're gonna do a for const f equipment stat effect group reference stat effect looping through the equipment entry. Oops. Entry has the effect package that has the stat effects, and then we're gonna say if the stat effect dot stat effect tag matches tag RPG gameplay tag static ability. We're only looking for the ability ones because these are the active effect handles, so we know it's going to take care of all the other ones. We're going to know this is going to take care of it. So this is just the ability ones here. Then what we could say is, then we could just say just like this. You can literally repeat this, just copy paste, but instead of plus we minus. Instead of plus, we minus. And that's it. Now, this doesn't handle one major thing. This, we need to check one thing. I believe I did this in the wrong order. So first we need to, we need to check. We look at the order of this thing. We roll for add equipment stats first and then add equipment ability second. However, if you roll a mace that grants you fireball, and the mace also grants you plus ranks to fireball, the problem is it's going to attempt to add those ranks of fireball before it gives you the ability. So let's start with cutting this and adding the ability first before we do the equipment stats. That's going to take care of that. And then on the ability system component, actually, what we're going to do is we're going to come here and declare, again, a multicast delegate, and it'll be one param. And we're going to say F on equipment stat, equipment ability given. And this will broadcast an F RPG equipment entry pointer that will call equipment entry like this, and then we can say F on equipment ability given on equipment ability given, And the reason we're doing this is because we grant the equipment ability right here by adding equipment ability. This could potentially request an async load. And the thing is we can't add those. We cannot attempt to add the stat effect ability levels until we know that the ability for sure has been granted entirely. So we need to figure out a way to wait until the ability is granted, and then after the ability is granted, we need to loop through every piece of equipment we have with every stat effect and apply it to this new ability, right? We need to make sure that everyone gets added, because if you have 2 or 3 pieces that all have ranks to skills, if you have all plus fireball on all those pieces, but you don't have fireball equipped, and then you equip fireball while you have those already equipped on your pieces, then you need to make sure those are added. I hope this all makes sense, but we'll do it. So what we're going to do is just say on equipment ability given, and we're going to broadcast the equipment entry. And then write this, we'll say weak this on broadcast equipment entry. We're going to do this because back in the equipment manager component, when we're going to write a new function in the equipment list right here under remove entry, we're going to say void bind ability system delegates. And then we can just simply say if you RPG ability system component ASC equals get ability system component. Then we can take the ASC and say on ability equipment ability given, and then we can add a lambda where we capture this and the ASC, and this will give us an FRPG equipment entry pointer called equipment entry. And we're going to create a lambda because we're going to write a function in here as well. And this is going to say check ability levels. And this is going to need 2 parameters. It'll need a URPG ability system component called ASC. And, no, it won't even need that. It'll just need a U ability system component called ASC, and an FRPG equipment entry pointer called equipment entry. It'll need that. So I can write this. If I generate a definition right here, then I can just check ability levels passing through the ASC and the equipment entry right here. And then while I'm in here, what I could do is say for non-const f gameplay ability spec reference spec through the ASC get activatable abilities, we could say if spec dot get dynamic spec source tags, we could say has tag exact, and we're looking for the equipment entry. We want the effect package. The ability has the ability tag because we're looking for the one we just granted, right? Because we're going to check the abilities now that we just granted this one, right? We're broadcasting through the equipment entry with the ability tag that we just granted. So if we have that, then we're going to say for, and then auto entry, it equals entries dot create iterator entry it, and then plus entry it, and then I want a const FRPG equipment entry reference called current entry, and we'll set that equal to a dereferenced entry it. And then now that I'm inside the current entry and I'm running through all of my entries, after the current entry, say for, and we'll do const f equipment stat effect group reference called stat effects, and we're going to find that in the current entry has the effect package, has the stat effects, and then we can say if not stat effect dot context tag that is valid, Now we can say continue because we know that the ability ones are going to be the only ones that we have the context tags on now. But for now, it's fine. We can just say if it's not valid, then we can continue and go to the next one. But then we're going to say if the spec.get dynamic source tags has tag exact, and we're looking for the stat effects.context tag because that's what it is. Then we're back to the spec.level. We'll set that equal to fmath clamp, and this is spec.level plus the stat effect current value, and between 1.f and the spec.level plus the stat effect current value. So now when this is granted and the equipment ability is given to them in the ability system component, whether it's there because it's valid already or because it's asynchronously loaded, it'll broadcast this delegate with this, roll through everything and make sure that it's up to date with everything. And something very important we can't forget is that we have to call bind ability system delegates. So what we need to do is come in here and we need to make a begin play. So I need a protected section. Let's say virtual void begin play. Just generate a definition. We say super begin play, and then we can say if get owner has authority. Then we could say equipment lists dot bind ability system delegates. So now we can bind the ability system delegates. But we're back in the editor. Let's fix all the broken tags. They're broken everywhere. All right, so let's start with the data. We'll start with data and we'll go into stat effects and we'll go into stats, and we just need to open up all of these because these are now, it'll start saying invalid tier. And then so we need stat effects attributes, and this is mid tier and this is health up. And then because we renamed it stat effect name, so we'll just need to retype that health. And then this is shield. And then this is crit chance. Critical hit chance. We'll do that. And then we'll just finish. We gotta do this to all of them. We gotta do this as low tier, health up, health, shield up, shield, critical hit chance. And actually, I'm forgetting to remember, it's stat effect dot attribute dot low tier now, right? Now it's got the dot attribute in the right before low tier, so we can't forget that. So the equipment name lines up, and this is why you don't want to do this and break your tree like this very much. That's why I feel bad that we had to do this, but this is the only way that I could, this is the best way that I could figure to do this, is while we have these. Okay, so this is high tier, health up, this is health, and this is shield up, and we'll say shield, and this is crit chance up, and we'll say critical hit chance, like this. And then so that will fix that there. And then we need to come to the data because there should be the equipment stat effects. These are no longer stat effect.low tiers, now stat effect.attributes.low tier. And stat effect mid tier is now stat effect attribute mid tier. And then we're going to do stat effect high tier. And then equipment ability can stay. And then that means what we're going to do is in the stats, what I can do is create another miscellaneous data table, and then this will be an equipment stat effect group. And this will be DT, equipment, stats, abilities. And if you want, we could do these by tiers as well. That's up to you. I don't usually think there's enough ranks of abilities to really kind of get it out there like that. So I'm going to leave it at 1. Okay, we're going to add a row. And, the first thing, we need to make some gameplay tags for this. So we're going to come into here and we're going to add an ability or a sub tag. So it's stat effect.ability. And we'll say low tier fireball. And we'll add this to the default gameplay tags. And we'll add this, and this will be low tier ice shards. And we'll add that there. And we're just going to start with these two for now. So we'll just do ability, low tier fireball. And this will say this is plus ranks to fireball. Plus fireball skill rank. And then you could put like S plus fireball skill ranks right here. And what we're going to do is not the context tag. Remember, it's going to be the ability tag, which is the equipment, ability, dynamic projectile. Fireball is type 1. And we don't need an effect class, but here's something I'm going to show you is so the minimum stat level, we're going to say we want this to be between 1 and 2. But the thing is, if you do 1 and then 2 like this, it's going to be, if you do 2.0, because you want to do this between 1 and 2.0. And you could say it's not a fractional stat, right? We need a whole number. It's going to be very hard for you to actually roll that 2. It's almost impossible to roll that specific 2 in a float running between like that. So if you want to help your players, what you're going to do is do something like 2.5. And then you're going to say 2.5, and it's not a fractional stat. And then you're going to hope that this rolls like 2.3, and then because it's not a fractional stat, it'll truncate that 0.3 off, and then it'll just give you the 2. So it allows there to be a roll buffer to get max roll. Now, the less you want them to get max roll, you just decrease that. You could say 2.1, and now it's less likely they can still get this 2, but it's just less likely that they'll get it. So you could do this and do that. So I just do 2.5. So now it'll be 1 or 2 levels of that. And then I can add this. This will be stat effect dot ability dot low tier dot fireball. And then this one will be stat effect dot ability low tier dot ice shards. And we're going to come here and say this is ice shards and then plus ice shards skill rank, and with the context tag of type 2, min stat level, max stat level 2.5. And probability select. I forgot we have probability select. I need to change that. We'll just give it to 1 because if it hits it, we'll hit it. So now I have this. So I can come in here into the DA equipment stat effects, and then we can add this tag that says for the stat effect ability. In all the abilities right here, we can come here and say the equipment stat abilities, and then that will read that. We can close this, and then we need to come into our definitions. So we're gonna do mace, small knife, wooden shield, sword. So we're going to see that the sword and the broken mace go in the right hand. So what we're going to do is leave the abilities. We're going to force an ability roll here. And we're going to leave the abilities on the broken mace on the bronze sword. And on all of them, we're going to give them, oh yes, look, all of the tags are broken. So what we'd like to do is give this all the possible different ones. So we're just going to check all of them. And I could just give them all. And then this one, all of these are invalid, so we have to recheck them all. All of these are invalid. Okay, so all those are there. So now this has the opportunity to do these, and I'm going to bump these up to all 5. I want to see if the small knife and the wooden shield, I'll see if they can't get me all 5 types now. So if I roll 5 stats, it'll give me fireball ranks, ice shards ranks, and crit health and shield, all 5. I would love to show you how I could do this, but in order to show you how we're going to do this, we need to come back into code, and we're going to do 2 things. The first one is I'm going to get out of these files. I don't need these files. I do need the inventory component. We're going to change this equipment ability roll right here. We're going to change this and make it a more concrete. Right now, basically, if you don't hit the first ability that you roll, it's over. And we need to do like the stat effects where we make sure that there's an ability on it before we move on. So we're going to say bool b should roll, and we're going to set that equal to true. And we say while b should roll, and then we can fit all of this rolling logic in here. And then right here, after we successfully do this, we say b should roll, and we'll set that equal to false, and then we'll break. And then now, if you force the ability roll or whatever, it'll make sure there's 1 on there. So we'll do that. And then the other thing that what I want to do is we're going to come back into the attribute set, because I'm going to show you, we're going to see how this works, because remember that our ability damage in these things is scaled based off the ability level itself, right? That's the whole reason that we want to do this. So now that we're down here, we're going to repeat what we did before printing the damage onto the screen. So we're going to say f gameplay effect context handle, and we set that equal data.effect.get context. And then we have the FRPG effect, gameplay effect context pointer, and we'll say RPG context. And FRPG gameplay effect context, and this is get effect context with the context handle. Then I have that, and then I can say F color, debug color. Let's set that equal to RPG context is critical hits, question mark, F color red for true, and F color green for false. And then we're going to say G engine add on screen debug message with a key of -1, time to display of 5 seconds, the debug color as the color, and then F string printf, and with text macro of, and we could just say damage dealt. And we'll do the type specifier and point to F, so we can get 2 decimal points of a float, and then we could just do the local damage like that. So if we do this, then what we'll do is we'll see the damage being dealt from the abilities while it's going on. So let's rebuild. Let's make sure we save everything. Save all, save selected, save all. And then now we rebuild. Okay, so now that we're back in the editor, let's fire it up and see how it goes. Oh, the equipment entry, that's right. Let's look at this. Oh, I got an error in the equipment entry, and that's because if I do the attribute name is no longer there. It's now called stat effect name. So we'll do that, stat effect name, and we will see this. So now that should take care of that. Excuse me, I didn't do that. But we'll hop on this client right here, and we'll see... oh, first off, we'll hit... Oh, we still have a bunch of lag. This is optional for you, optional for me, but I'm actually going to stop right now for a second. And we're going to have a little bit of lag in the config, default engine. We're going to have a little bit of lag, but just not 250 seconds. If you want to do like 50 milliseconds, we'll save that, and then I'll rebuild now that I saved that to 50. Okay, so now that we don't have the most insane lag, Here we go. We'll go like this. So small knife is just shield, wooden shield. So I got 2 fireball skill ranks here, and then broken mace has ice shards. This has got all of them, bronze swords. This has fireball and then ice shard ranks. So if I put on this bronze sword, I could attack this guy here, and I'm doing 21.49 and then 119 on the critical hit, 21.49. But then the small knife doesn't have anything. The wooden shield has +2 fireballs ranks though, right? So if I do this and I equip the wooden shield, now I have that. So I shouldn't be doing 21 damage anymore. And now I'm doing 32 damage now. So 32 and then 129 in the critical hit. And then 53 now that he's down in health and he doesn't have that anymore. So now you've got that, absolutely. And then, so this broken mace has ice shards. I can equip that. And then this ice shards doesn't do much, 24. But then we can see the bronze sword has the fireball. And then remember, if I equip the bronze sword now, and then it should have just cycled back through, and I'm still doing the 35.82 damage instead of the, I'm still doing the 35% or 35 damage from getting the bonus ranks off the wooden shield, even though I equipped the ability after that. So that takes care of that.